live yet. Hello, America. Hello, Weathersfield, Connecticut, America, Connecticut. I'm gonna plug this in. No one's here yet. No one's here. This is an important day here. Many pray box sings. It teaches things. We don't separate black rights, and we discern where and how the breaching method separated them, and where and how the breaching method sustained, engineered people, propagated people, blaming other things, others, ourselves for what it was causing then. Now it's still being caused. It's a value to America. Your connection is unstable. Please wait while we try reconnecting. I guess I'm not live. I don't know if I'm live. I'll drive vaccines to teach us things. So Martin Luther King. People are shocked and awe of how to respond because since they were kids, you guys had other told to you, and you had other confessed and demonstrated regarding how locations, areas, and states were left entertaining of the breaching method applied, facts treatments, truth treatments, positive treatments that were in collusion with its negatives, the breaching method's overt negatives. Still as actually recorded, blames on other things, others, ourselves. See, what is hyper evidential was prevented free speech. So everyone was a complete slave, A through Z. And that breaching method, again, had to keep people, everyone blaming on other things, others, themselves. So it knew that ahead of time. So it had slavery against black people sickly distinctly to keep how that human difference. So this is a conversation about the invisible, but still discernible. Where and how we are species, body of volume, and individuals. And groups don't have the means to not be attached to fake words. And we still have everyone attached to fake words to entertain fake words. And they make exceptions in exception nature and demonstration that they get away with it because a lot of that tied to what was being engineered when it was being sustained. Is being sustained, still being sustained. When you guys pretend that the Revolutionary War or the Civil War was about slavery, you leave out exceptions in exception nature. You leave out how both sides wanted to end slavery and both sides wanted to further it because they were trying to fight at a quality of fact cheaping nature where the short words and what is hyper evidential is prevented themselves. Actual fact, quality of fact, cheaping nature, property of the integrity that could counter, that could be to explain, to even understand, to counter the identity of sophistication as the breaching method /S as its identity of sophistication / non-sophistications as the peaks identities of sophistication, all the way to the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, that insidiousness from people's opinions A through Z. That's why they are shocked and awed in our most intelligent people about how to respond to what Jim Crow's laws were about, syntactically, because they had others since you guys had others since you were little kids. Told you in place of the short words and the revelations that our founding parents left us to have explained, understood, discerned. So now one has learned. So Martin Luther King, black, you speak about black and you had obligations in every single campus, especially where the camp, especially differentially. So, because that speciality is led by what shows the identity of the hyper-simultaneous is an identity of scientific value to each of the sciences where we are and how we are actually manifest as syntax nature. So you have the phenomenon of MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN, for example. I'm not making opinions. And I understand you guys are victims. You go work hard at work each day. No, in other words. And then, in other words, I know you guys have hard opinions about the people who don't have work each day. See, but then you leave that out about black. Because what kind of jobs are waiting for them? They can't even walk out their house. People A through Z and have a soil that's already ready for the seeds, the way nature had done it. Let alone New York City. That's a trap involved with the torture method that was simultaneous with slavery. That the torture method is simultaneously with the identity theft, fraud, slander method. Someone could argue that other was there, but their premises treatments are going to show self-valued roles with criminally foreign influence premises treatments. Criminally foreign influence doesn't mean that we have to blame another country or a criminal enterprise. We could blame a hyper-criminal enterprise. We could blame the breaching method itself. Its method was and is invisible but discernible. But that logic doesn't connect with the logic that where people want to cite source, which sources. This is what's known. Our founding parents had to counter extort our other founding parents. So rather than, in other words, and all the other stuff that was spoken, that was forced to be entertained. Yeah, they had to hide the breaching law method, witch trials, slavery with color. It was against every single person. They sustained this against Native Americans A through Z. They made them fight with each other. Because now they're no longer, the ground's tactically denatured. The value progression of the rest of nature with no criminal foreign influences. It's no longer the same age. Remember, in other words, the ancients, before criminally foreign influence uses, before the locations, areas, and states became criminally foreign influence, obviously, people did way better for themselves. When we could still, in other words, we're in this infrastructure since before cars. They're pretending that we don't agree about things by forcing subjects treatments and facts treatments that prevent the value /S of exceptions and of exception nature from being demonstrated. They couldn't get away with their convictions with each of the sciences individually grouped and together as good people, just like the overt criminal enterprise. Good people never had a chance. These are the only ones we hear in the news. CNN had roles with some overt KKK themed people, and they have roles with their sources with military police forging and switching names with some KKK Confederate flag themed and black themed officers involved with federal crimes with evidences and with drugs and medicines, and as the ones that counter that. And those doctors involved with their patients and criminals and trying to get people off addictions, those people with their family members have been through time since I was in grammar school, attaching me to fake locations, fake words with themselves and with their family members, and trying to set up exceptions with their friends tied to them. In other words, identity thefts and frauds. Rick Sam Faglione will tell you we had no communications. We were in 8th grade class. We never had any good or bad. We didn't have any bad feelings or good feelings. We were good. We didn't have any bad. We had good. We had nothing bad in a class with Mr. Neville. He stole my. He was trying to start a fight with us. I don't know what he would say about that, but Rick Faglione, I never saw him outside of campus when I was in middle school. I never had anything to do with them. There was like one exception regarding they had roles with a Bryan family and with police families that answer that run that have roles with the stores. They have to hire this amount of retired standing. Okay, these type of job is certified, so they're going to watch your things. It's like an extortion method. Even the industries, because they were left, they were left relied upon what couldn't be relied upon, and ourselves defended at the same time. But our founders had to hide roles with their plan, which otherwise it would have been worse. So offensively, they have people that are pretending passions and emotions as, quote, experts, unquote, that pretend that our founding parents, were racist because they've been replacing consciously the short words and means by and needs to understand how to use what is hyper evidential. To speak for as correlation nature is actually inherent act and progressive means. Little kids, when I was in grammar school, I could explain it easily. That same logic. In other words, the Native Americans, all you have to do is admit the breaching method against them. You don't even need that word breaching method. You admit which was sustained against them, what we don't want. We want to use all the means we have. The same exact way their soul and dreams want. They are the species identity of volume. And their system is easier to discern where and how the native system is forsaken. And then all exceptions, exception, nature, and demonstration are the same thing. Sick laws, sickly distinctly, singling out the physical difference of being black and applying it, having applied it to a breaching methods means and needs by difference and by arrays of opinions, regardless if they're fighting with each other or not, in collusion with its illusions and delusions by that, preventing what is preventing what is hyper evidential. In other words, if there's something that could be sensed that is going to show the Constitution abridged, it's easier to sense. If something's going to be prevent or hurt the rights of others, like the infrastructure below the feet of every black person, even if they are wealthy, sickly distinctly all identity ground locations from here to Russia. Russia has suburbs that look just like ours since before our founding parents were born, per that torture slavery method against themselves, already entrenched. They had the counter restored to our founding parents, our other founding parents. They had to make them all pretend other lies and motivations for their roles with the revolution because of the laws at the time were breaching method applied. They were self-valued by England and by France and Spain, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, because their locations, their countries had to start on that semi-ancient trap entertained too. That's why how England does not remember the history of English properly. That's hyper-evidential. That's not written. You guys are offensively preventing us from using what is actually recorded as evidence. And you've been getting away with it too because they've been stacking databases with fabricated evidences, including on private databases, timed in parallel with on the campuses, regardless if they're private or public. and they have it per with the way that it's using each age of correlation nature's actual conjunction. There is a subject that the ancients, before coming to foreign influences, they know that the scientific value of that which is hyper simultaneous. We don't have to agree about the name of the scientific value, but we have to know it's present. The sounds of English language, the sounds of the English language have a better than living identity of relationship to themselves. In demonstration of this, how they are grouped. The sounds individually grouped and together, the same way the sounds of music are. The notes individually, the chords, and that tonal structure and its relativity to what sounds good or not, what's harmony, what's harmony with that which is still being completed while it is still active, while part is already locked, the inherent, unchanging as what is variable relative to its identity of relationship to itself. So it as a volume has value, as nature has value, and its identity of relationship to itself. And the value of that are three bound subjects with correlation with how the mind works. Now, I'm not a doctor, but it is also recorded how the doctors have been getting away originally and still with identity theft and fraud roles and pretending others simultaneously as their roles, including groups that are hate groups associated with psychologists, psychiatry, and people A through Z. All those types we hear speaking for and as color difference other than the human species way. And so that needs to pretend that democracy means what it doesn't. All truth and integrity stems from the ability to have exceptions in exception nature, not denied, to have the identity thefts and frauds countered, that would them still originally fabricating audio and video in courts, pretending other. When did they have integrity? Other countries have been keeping this the outcome. They kept them needing to hide those light progressions from years back. Leading up to the World Trade Center, there were people since they were kids involved with federal crimes, with falsified police reports rolls, with investigations as victims, but as victim predators, everyone speaking through others. And no one wants it, but everyone self-values it because of the extent how they delay it too. It made everyone locked into pretending passions and emotions, and when they are given the real ones, when they're given means to real means to pretend, okay, I don't like them because of this or that, like that. They can't put that. They can't say that because they're involved with sequence shifts. They've been keeping the identity ground locations usage. They've been measuring. Weathersfield parents have been measuring with other kids and with the relationship to their kids and writing down and lying about the natures of the relationships to each other and putting fake relationships to each other. And they're going to have to pretend that this is valuable down the road because they have been involving the Weathersfield kids of the various campuses and Hartford campuses, New Britain kids, Rocky Hill kids. So some of their teachers, their police forms, some of the private police with the schools, they're involved with identity thefts and frauds. They're involved with wire crimes. They're involved with predicate acts in cases. They're involved with predicate acts with depositions as identity theft fraud method roles, which actually recorded. All you have to do is really care, and we'll have one line of continuous evolution. We'll have a method of infrastructural so we have to be able to discern that and how we've been self-valuing tactically denatured means, not just a tactically denatured base, effectively having kept unfathomable what like that we could reveal and could have had revealed. There's not a body on of the species that doesn't want to lift all identity ground locations, including especially those most forsaken. But we're not the ones. So no, even in other words, and the people with the money aren't the ones until we get the fact cheap in nature relative. In other words, the countries are victim predators that were forced to be entertained as victim predators. And by the voices furthering them, because there was hundreds of nations already in the semi-ancient trap. Hundreds of nations already were fake standards and pretending otherwise, self-valuing how the breaching method kept non-sophistication and pseudo-sophistication and collusion like that. In other words, the peak sophistication to non-sophistication kept needing to hide the same lie progressions, styles of fact-cheating nature, failures, qualities that couldn't defend themselves and afford the short words and uses by what is hyper evidential and by how uses by understanding how the mind actually works. The mind discerns from and with, while as 5 distinct identities of sequence nature. They are simultaneously bound as 3 distinct identities of simultaneous nature. There are 5. For example, the order to the finite is distinct from the order that is yet to come, but its value is already here. For example, if you build America from a tactically denatured base as the breaching method forced, it's going to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. What really causes murders in New York City is a bunch of things that are simultaneous, but you guys aren't letting the simultaneous be spoken about because you have premises treatments that are not really finite, because you speak as groups, because you were forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, taken in shock, and all only capable of doing so since you were kids. Vaccines forbids. So there is a way to fight that is by the rules, that has not been yet secured, and has not yet won the revolution. So, for example, the news media, they pretend that science is about measuring what people's opinions toward Martin Luther King in the past were or now, rather than use real premises. Because constantly, increasingly, all identity ground locations, formally and informally, they cannot afford to have mandated law followed or to have someone ask for it to be followed relative to where the people who are pretending roles pretending other, they have that certain type of victim predator, A through Z, that the breaching method knew would have to pretend blame other things, others, ourselves, when nature would demonstrate where and how the short words at each age of fact should be nature's campus. The short words actually intended and proper, where they are measured and maintained, being and having been replaced by the breaching methods, needs and means by short words. It puts slavery in, because slavery, no one wants that. In that thing that was sustained, where it had the colonists and the Native Americans blaming each other and leaving out where and how, again, England doesn't even remember the history of English. In other words, America's founders helped preserve English. You see how English talking English? They don't understand English. They are a certain type of victim. No offense, England. They have people pretend passions and emotions because of how they get away with this. They have the military involved with a whole bunch of different countries with psychological delusions and criminally foreign influence factory nature. They have complete possession over politics, over the capability, therefore prevented, of anyone discerning what our founders wanted and needed us to discern about where and how these voting rights narratives are in collusion. So, for example, they have a black guy who has a CNN, the top voice. He's got a voice. He gets a KKK guy, and they're talking about if they can get along or not. They're not talking about their fact treatment nature. They're not talking about their premises treatments. They're both, CNN is even worse because they're preventing and having prevented mandated law with their Facebook page roles, with the people that answer the phone. I didn't call CNN though. I have to call. It'll be the same thing. I call it WFSB has roles, wire crimes with the Wethersfield Police, Rocky Hill Police, State Police, as the families retired and standing ones interstates. Paul Vance, please respond here. Please respond. Please get me a response for the forging names and switching names, falsified police reports roles with the principal child abuser, and your roles with WFSB and CNN and CCSU. I don't know you. But WFSB brought your name up in one of their advertisements. I've been asking them. I can't get a response from them. And they keep stacking and forging more. They keep stacking more names to roles with them. And they're in the background needing to lie more and more. They spread out these lies with a principal child abuser. And there's a Bob Chase that said a Phil Close involved with it. And there is an officer who used the name Sullivan. The Wethersfield Police switched names and forged names. Through time, they're preventing writing involved with their roles with predicate acts on my street and with the fire department. Inspector Mike called me to confess, demonstrate his roles with wire crimes with Wethersfield Police and identity thefts and frauds, falsified police report roles, and with Wethersfield Fire Department people I don't know, and some Russian families I don't know the names of, but one of them is Peruta, involved with drugs and medicines crimes, also with a whole bunch of people at the corner of Town Line Drive. That's two, but at the corner of Route 3 and Elm Street, with the name Colo and a whole bunch of people like tied to an Oliveri on and off Trinity College, on and off CCSU, involved stacking evidences with various police forms in military and foreign countries. People involved with Afghanistan criminally and with Korea criminally, and then vice versa too. They're keeping each other criminally foreign influenced and hiding behind how our nations get punished if we tell about what I caught them doing on and off Central Connecticut State University, on and off Trinity College. The colleges didn't do it. They're putting me and others in fake words with each other, including my and they're writing fake evidences on the campuses, putting fake ties between people on campuses that are filmed 24/7, so investigators can hide lie progressions, roles with natures of identity thefts and frauds. Those are also with people with Hartford courts, judges, and their family members, people that work for the courts, and their family members of Hartford as the ones involved in other cities that were involved on and off Trinity College and CCSU, planting evidences, identity thefts and frauds instances, and confessions, and then, in other words, and preventing writing, switching names and things like that. So it's people. There's an officer who they said his name was Hunter. I don't know if it's his real name because and they were unclear about that. With one of the Hartford courts and one of the Hartford police departments and police types involved criminally, with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, and foreign and domestic military. So they had something to do with some Afghanistan families they involved with predicate acts when I was in high school. And so Ray Cololo said or someone pretending to be him, said on Facebook or YouTube that he's involved with psychedelics, with men and women that were involved with psychedelics with him when he was a kid, selling psychedelics. And then he was pretending I had something to do with it. Because he's got police forms in his family. There's an Officer Phelps with various police departments, and Wethersfield Police Chief Cintron, and one years ago, that used to live in the house he's in, recorded tied to the woman that lived there, reportedly. I don't know that police chief's name. But so they've been preventing me writing since I was a kid. And these courts, judges have been speaking fake things into the databases with houses that live near me with their kids. And they didn't want it because they did it against them too. And they can't put it on paper because I caught them between campuses furthering things behind my back, other people's back, putting little kids in fake locations, lying about people. So this is a wicked, immature kid. These are Ray Clow and his friends were immature. There are proofs that because they were involved with doctors of psychology, they were pretending they were about maturity and stuff like that, because they were timed. They measure where you're going to be, where you're going to walk, and then they pretend to know you. In other words. And then they did it through time. Like there's a Brendan Leahy and his father. Both of them pretended they had conversations with me. One of them, a whole long fake conversation. I never had a conversation with either of them. I have one word with the guy who, after he was physical assault with me, or like, even though it wasn't like it didn't hurt or anything, but he won't like it like that. But it did hurt. So there's a Brendan Leahy involved with drugs and medicines crimes on my street, 3 times recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by Wethersfield police. They confessed, recorded, demonstrated afterwards and stuff like that in weird ways, that and how the Wethersfield police chief was involved. They made confessions, and with their switching and forging names. And they have the town offices involved with this. Now the town offices are involved with some Afghanistan families. And when some people involved with some drugs and medicines crimes with their doctors on my street and with the street next to me, there's a Dave Smith and a Jamie Smith that their mother demonstrated, recorded, confessed is tied to a guy who's involved with a Dr. Dingleberry, a Dr. Dewberry. Also, Anthony Agman sought me out to confess and demonstrate this. He's one of the ones that was in a class I had nothing to do with him, though. In an algebra class when I was in high school. And there was a Mike Demain, is one of the ones involved with the Wethersfield police chief, Mazzucato. Reno Mazzucato. I don't know his brother and sister's name. In other words. And I know nothing personal against them. This is the police chief, and people tied to them and his friends brought them up in their confessions. He's married to a Jessica Cintron, apparently. These are the police making confessions about their own as pretending they can't talk about stuff. They made an exception to make it look like I knew him in his driveway one time. I was in his driveway for a couple of seconds, Reno Mazzucato. In Wethersfield, and one time an old line is involved with people from Trinity College and CCSU, involved with identity thefts and frauds with the intelligence community, and with a Mike Pandolf, where and how they make arrays of people making statements, and they're all in collusion. with sequence shifts, with identity theft, frauds, slanders, lying about how people know each other. These are people that are going out of their way on campuses and off campuses to lie about the nature of relationship between students and other students, and put fake natures of relationships, fake ties between people on and off campus, illusions connected. They're exploiting those lie progressions at the next schools, keeping more professionals and people like that as the ones involved with overt criminal enterprises. How they are involved in criminal enterprises is relevant to where and how they confess, demonstrate, and record roles with criminal foreign influences to the youngest kids. Youngest kids are ready to understand, and already do understand, that and how a breaching method had been sustained against Native Americans. That's the story of American history. Then while it was distinctly being sustained against colonists, while it was then our founding parents, they don't teach you this right up front. And you have to get lucky to find it, reading between stuff. James Madison and them, in other words, the ones behind James Madison and them, they had to counter extort our other founding parents, force them to narratives about how they came to that plan to be a country. And so they knew that they could force and help them to do that. And that the breaching method would keep other countries individually grouped together, just like they would keep those countries that involved with that, used remotely against us. It would keep them against their own, individually grouped and together, leverage against their own. So they had to react to the real causes of propagated acts, to the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures as fact-cheaping nature, incapable of doing so per a semi-ancient breaching method, a semi-ancient trap. Worse than just the proverbial devil / genie. That which is a replacement. It's another hyper invisible but still discernible, attached to all subjects. That breaching method is inseparable from all American subjects treatments. Other has been pretended legitimate. So you don't have to know American history. You have to know that, and you have to know how people would use or could use now the most knowledge of the to get over on correlation nature. So they've been replacing each age of fact-cheaping nature's actually inherent active progressive means by short words. So they've been replacing the nature that people actually long. And that's going to take manifest. That's going to be manifest. See, but now it's with the kids of overt criminal enterprises on private ones, of the interbranch originally still self-value having been used remotely, criminally legalized, criminal insidiousness natures. Styles of logic, also delusions wrought simultaneously. Physical delusions are manifest with the treatments of black and white that leave out that breaching method. And you don't have mental health care providers. There have not been roles with that since founding. Delusions wrought. So they've been using medical locations in the beginning. How they've been getting away with this is how they've been keeping the courts needing to hide lie progressions, needing to hide the actual quality of nature, actually recorded when they have conversations with people in life, when their family members do, when they respond to things afterwards, when people say, "Oh, I remember you told me, I heard that," and so they have to keep hiding lie progressions. So there's a Judge Killian who has been speaking fake things into Connecticut records as a judge. And there's a Judge Smith who's been doing this. They've been doing this with child abusers of juxtaposed natures and with physical delusions and with their roles with places, interstates, and people, how they are kept criminally foreign influence relative to this. Again, they know that kids have the means to explain and needs to explain and to value, to feel good about themselves, to visualize that unity that was and is being prevented by preventing what is hyper-evidential shared from being shared, and by replacing it. And the more they replace that, the more they impose motivations, natures, needs, interests, real, but reliant upon those same illusions and self-valued natures of organized crime at all locations that the breaching method put in place, worse than war crimes. So the people with war crime statutes we don't have any legal representation because hundreds of nations left this out. This is what religions left us. Religions too, they knew that the stewards of the religions would be identity, ground, locations, criminally foreign influence too. Styles of nature and showing that as criminal and insisting nature, positive and negative treatments. Trying not to be tribal good, let's do this. See, it forced them in that fake presentation, in that fake preservation of the Bible, of religion, of the Quran, the first part of the Quran, in the first part of the Old Testament. The stewards of the Quran and of the Old Testament will not let the value of it spoke. It will not let the significance of it be shown, how it has relativity to these subjects, treatments, individually grouped and together in the news, where it says that the sciences come together in the Old Testament. Because the sciences there isn't a real identity of relativity. You guys have theories that, okay, well, this is a science. We're measuring what the opinions are about Martin Luther King in the past and how people feel about him now. People that have to start with short words, abridged, entertained, abridged. You have to entertain logic that leaves out what is hyper-evidential. We're not going to do this. We can't make this mistake. CT must break. Then you find the seed. George Washington did not chop down the fake branches of government in Connecticut, as Connecticut at the time. He only did partially. They had to leave slavery entrenched in the North and in the South. He had to leave rolls with it, forced to counter it, or to be destroyed themselves by their own game, by the breaching method's own game they'd been entertaining. You have to understand the counter-extortion behind our founding parents. You have to understand the identity theft, fraud, slander against them. Even if someone wants to debate that we don't have to understand the identity theft, fraud, slander, and torture with slavery simultaneously to it against Black people, you have to admit it against the founders too. And if you deny it against the Black people, or Black per the breaching method's definition, though, and then per theirs, everyone else's distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Mine, I'm noting it tied to the breaching method. I don't entertain the science that calls that. What causes those negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, where people are killing each other, predicate acts, wrongdoing? In other words, it needed those responses. Knave, throw them in jail. Those jails needed to hide spots into the life, needed to hide their actually recorded natures regarding their fact treatments, regarding their instances treatments, their time treatments, their sequence treatments, the relativity to it. So they have the people that run the prisons involved with computer crimes, also with the military, that are databases oriented. And this breaching method was databases oriented since semi-ancient times. The Republic has been databases oriented. The Republic has been oriented since ancient times, though, before they became criminally foreign influenced the sciences. There are proofs that the original ancients have been led by the identity of hypersimultaneous, which presents its relativity to our subjects individually grouped in together. It's invisible but still discernible, just like the subject is, just like the predicate is, just like their value/value progression is. How they are just two distinct identities of volume that only increase as value, positive or negative relation to themselves. So, one of the things that makes Martin Luther King's speech better than your guys and your gals' speeches is that it's trying to overcome, it's trying to address the slavery, but it's trying to do it without using what is hyper evidential. It's trying to entertain the sense and sensibilities, the fact cheapy nature styles that can't be entertained in the problems or the answers spoke properly. And that's what the breaching method is. It's all we have to do, realize. In other words, every time they measure. So Republicans and Democrats are measuring and maintaining how they've had roles where the FBI used criminally foreign influence remotely, self-valued roles like that. They want to pretend other, but it's recorded relative to this. The same thing with the branches of government. Judges are recorded how with their family members, how they got away with it too, so long. Originally and still. That wasn't racism and prejudice. Why and how they got along furthering the slavery left entrenched. Furthering it, blaming on other things, others themselves for the breaching method that needed that because it's constantly, increasingly in demonstration to us the relativity of the breaching method that hurt the Native Americans and Black people and fake distinction as white people, sickly, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. So they keep people fighting about racism as one of the means to measure and maintain collusion, where hundreds of countries share students here or there on off our campuses, and where how all the identity ground locations and such phenomena were used to keep and are used to keep fake integrity, capable of getting away with pretending other. The breaching method knew that they would have to, and it facilitates them with the syntactical narratives, collusion at all locations, areas, and states. And that forced entertained even by presidents / chiefs know. So they're forced either to entertain locations, areas, and states, criminally foreign influence, positive and negative treatments in collusion, or they hurt them. Or they're forced to entertain that differentially sick, but to entertain whatever majority or minority differentially part, and they hurt them for that too, rightfully and wrongfully, simultaneously. You cannot entertain what is not hyper. You have to use what we can't restrict from what is hyper evidential from being spoken. They're trying to pretend that racism is something hyper evidential. That means what it doesn't. If someone has a ill premises treatments, obviously you're going to be prejudiced against them. Anyone. So we have little punks with fact, cheap nature, quality. You have no leaders of the mind. You have some sick, fake punks that are allowed to speak. Otherwise, they're silent. What? In other words, because they are preventing mandated law. They're pretending they could perceive our passions and emotions. I mean, they're lying about the reasons why they aren't following mandated law. They're valuing sequence shifts and putting more in. They're stacking names per their roles on a mass scale. For example, against American citizens, they commonly pretend that people are complaining about others. After they attach everyone to fake words and things like that. They force us to use these things. I can't get them on paper. And then also because they use these wire crime methods. They have a Trantolo and Trantolo, for example. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Involved with people that work for them too, with some judges and prosecutors and police, fabricating audio and video transcripts, pretending and coaching people to lie about, pretend they didn't understand what people are saying. WFSB and then people tied to them have been attaching me and others to fake words with the principal child abuser they forced. Part of the reason they force it, they fabricate audio and video content to replace what is actually recorded over the phones with the police, because they had roles with that with their family members and with the courts at the same time. The same ones, those same courts and police and other courts at the time were criminally involved with them, and people with the prisons tied to them, and the ones tied to the principal child abuser in prison now, or that he went to. They're involved, and they were involved, criminally forcing crimes with him and other people, and me not to tell. I caught them. Untimely death rolls, various natures of drugs and medicines crimes with these patients and their doctors before they got caught, and these criminals and their doctors before they got caught. Those doctors are delusions raw. Rolls also with the police forms on and off those prisons with their databases criminally involved. Sandy Hook has people involved with this. Sandy Hook families are involved with further police corruption too. Sandy Hook police, respond on here for them. Respond for Weathersfield police involved with you guys with this. There are people from Sandy Hook who confessed. More people in the name with the name in the family of O'Brien. And I don't know these Demain brothers, Adam Demain and Mike Demain. They're involved with some military and some religious locations. There are some Jewish community centers and Jewish people associated with Mike Demain were involved with hate crimes and falsified evidences crimes with some against Jews, with putting salt on their when I was in fifth grade, Ray Claw, my teacher never covered some military tactic where a general put salt on someone's land. That's what Ray said. And then he wanted me, and he went, and I watched him. I stood there. I didn't put any, just all the salt on them. He put all the salt on the guy's garden near me, a Jewish family, that Mike Demain repeated was about things about the girl and her boyfriend. I don't know her. And about how they're Jewish. I never communicated with them about their religion. I don't know about them. And I never had a conversation with any of them. And except for they put him on a roof of my neighbor's house, with one of the instances involved with the fire department, criminally involved with my location, and smoke came through my chimney, and there was no fire in it. And then the police showed up, the fire department showed up here one time, and they were doing something on that north side of my house. There's also Officer Jerry Miller with Facebook, confirmed on Facebook even. There's a KERR family, and then there's KNERR, but also Kerr family members. That Officer Jerry Miller recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed them roles on with federal crimes with houses in my area. And I identified some frauds. And with those are also people with that Judge Smith I had to write a complaint about when I was a kid. They're also involved with federal crimes with a Judge Killian and other judges associated personally with prosecutors, Brian Silver, and there were other. There's a Soulsby, and there are other prosecutors and state's attorneys and private attorneys criminally involved with a Leahy family and with a Subby Bajerio. Subby Bajerio was also involved with those judges and prosecutors criminally and falsified police reports rolls, identity theft fraud rolls, and with someone he stole a speaker box from, involved on off WFSB with in Rocky Hill, involved on off the buildings next to the state capitol, involved with various natures of federal crime methods and identity thefts and frauds, and roles with uses of the connections off campuses there that are tied to CCSU and Trinity College, and roles with uses of the remote uses of the stories of the news. So then they would then defend it and show that they would have to hide lie progressions relative to their roles with wire crimes with their regular phones too. So they attached me with NBC Connecticut News, attached me to fake words. Also, Sandra Spada and Alessandra Spada were court confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have boyfriends that influence them to make up lies about me behind my back and to steal my identity with people on off the state judicial branch offices and with people on off Wethersfield Pizza, involved with wire crimes with Wethersfield Police, involved with federal crimes with various natures of courts, and with C Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, involved with locations next to themselves, with people through time with other natures of organized crime where they've been using the right to lie, where they don't have the right to lie. They've been hiding exception nature. So please respond for them. What do I have to do? You guys forced bad things by playing whatever background you're playing. So someone get me a response for WFSB and for the schools. Tell me who denies what I say. Don't be a coward parent with the fake ones that are lying to you with their kids involved with this criminally. But why don't they just man up and I'll forgive them, and women up too. So there's the name Cololo. There's a Phil Cololo brought up by the whole name was used by a Bob Chase. He's one of the ones involved with various natures of courts and families, personally, criminally involved with forensics locations, also with the confessions of and federal crimes before that too, of on Facebook of a Joshua Julian on the principal child abuser's campus, with people from Sandy Hook involved with him criminally. There's an O'Neill family also involved with the Whiting's forensics place. That has been I don't know what the O'Neill woman looks like nor her husband with Wethersfield Police, but she's also involved with West Hartford schools. I don't know what her kids look like, but she recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Her kids are also involved with her with wire crimes with the news, and they have the news, how they go like with the fourth grade classes. With Hilton Cataly came to the Highcrest School when I was in fourth grade. And they have another guy now, I don't know his name, I forgot his name, associated with WFSB, and we're going to the campuses. They're involved also, where they're playing these rackets where the people answering the phones and giving the information to the people who are reporting, they're lying. They're putting fake records to what's actually recorded over the phones, and they're preventing mandated law offensively. So their sources are recorded involved with someone named Joe, who is a friend of a Mike Violet, who I never had a personal conversation with. There's a Mark Violet, who's one of the ones involved with the police families, an O'Brien family, and with a Ray Collo, as also 10 months ago. So the police have been using wire crime acts and methods of confessions over the phones and threats over the phone and with switching names. So that's how it's a threat too. Make sure I get a response for the Wethersfield Police forging and switching names. Get them on paper. Get the motherfucking cowards on paper. Now, get them to ones who, because they switched names. A whole bunch of people with the name McGee. And then one of them said, they bring their kids into it. They he had a weird voice because he was like scared about something because there's someone from all the ways there are police forms from Central Connecticut State University who have through administrations roles with some Washington D.C. and World Trade Center crap with these fake fucking integrity motherfuckers with the FBI and with the sources of these three fucking MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, Fix the News. God damn motherfuckers. New York City. I'm speaking for New York City. I'm speaking about those people in that borough box. No one gets hurt that way. Hey, Matty, pray. You're gonna hear and feel what my audience wants to hear and know, and they want truth. They don't want your lies. So, all rise. Be trial tribes. Rise. Campus Marcius calls you through the skies. Public course returns. I'll drop the force. Who learns? It surges through all things alone and even force. Wise its course, Maxine. I tell you things below. So I don't know. How do I get heard by anybody? That they have controls of the algorithms. Because they have entertained worse than hyper monopolies and uses of their sense and sensibilities. The same, in other words, they've been criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, leaving out exceptions, where and how they have immunities for the social media companies, where and how they have immunities for the prosecutors and judges. They've exploiting exceptions, where and how they have immunities for the military families. I'm bringing up their names because they brought them up as strangers years ago. Timed when I come around corners still, so they can pretend to know me when you can't respond. Or if you respond, they're going to use that for something else too, because they're lying about the natures of the relationships between me and other kids. So there is the Cololo family involved with wire crimes, also has a Delafair family involved with identity thefts and frauds with them, attaching me to fake ties and fake natures of ties to people tied to them. There's also a half faggot guy that says he's he was one of the roommates of Ray Cololo, and now they're involved with the Wethersfield police starting family fights between mothers on my street, and it has something to do. They have all these confessions tied to the corner of Route 3 and Elm Street. There are men and women with the name Bobby, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with locations next to Central Connecticut State University, and at that corner with the courts criminally involved with her, and with the police forms criminally involved with her, and families on off CCSU involved with federal crimes with her, and with stripper joints, with identity thefts and frauds clicks, including involved with UPS, with various natures of organized crime roles, with that corner too, with Oliveri families, and with their roles with Eric Jensen, that Eric Oliveri confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed, and Eric Jensen confirmed. They weren't there at the same time. His house and Eric Oliveri's house is rolled with federal crimes, with houses next to the state judicial branch offices, and when people on off the state judicial branch offices, which is right next to Route 3, his house and the judicial branch offices, and that place in Rocky Hill, and it's all along there. Now, I never saw him around Joe DeMoro either. Joe DeMoro is also one of the ones involved with them, with identity thefts, fraud, federal crimes with evidences, and with his neighbors involved with child abusers and identity thefts, frauds, rolls with that, where and how people aren't being allowed to pretend it because they've been attaching people to fake audio and video, per the extent of how they have the military police involved with those apartment buildings and their uses of it, where they have plainclothes officers and like their acting coaches involved intercities with connections to each other. Also on the corner of Church Street and Main Street in Old Weathersfield, and that house where the at the corner where the Hanson family is, and another one on that street involved with the name Cololo too. They didn't use the whole name, the Weathersfield Police. They called from the town offices. So these are also ones with Afghanistan families involved with drugs and medicines crimes. With the Weathersfield Police, the families that answer the phones for the police, with this Cololo family and the Smith family, and with their roles with pretending lies and illusions on Facebook with the courts involved with drugs crimes with them, medicine crimes with them. Brian Silver is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by Rick Sam Faglione, involved with people on my street through time with the executive branch, involved with federal crimes with New Britain Superior Court's families. And they switch names at the courts. That's one of the methods they do that are criminally foreign influence, as one of the things relative to where and how they can pretend that justice is even around to be, or science is even around to speak for Hartford, Connecticut, let alone New York City. So we could take this upon ourselves and start getting the immediate reliefs. We have the names enough to get the rest of them and to force mandated law. These aren't people that just hurt me. These are people that hurt a whole bunch of people. So they owe Hartford a lot of money. They owe the campuses a lot of money. They have more houses next to campuses involved with federal crimes with the news agencies and with the investigators that are criminally foreign influence with areas of overt criminal enterprises. Also a number of ways involved with the departments at Central Connecticut State University with the names on Franklin Avenue involved with Central Connecticut State University, and my name in the background, punk motherfuckers. Get those fucking cops on paper with yourselves, motherfucker. I don't know other names. Sam, I don't know his last name, but those people involved with this. So they attached Saudis to forced roles with them with federal crimes with people that were covering up lie progressions from years before that, and they're still been hiding this from the parents. They're pretending it's only legitimately how they're leveraging how class placements will be for their kids and against others. They're putting people in class placements that are going to have to and do have to hide lie progressions from their roles with people from other campuses before that as the identity theft / fraud method against everyone sickly, non-distinctly. But it's distinctly where and how it is formal, that which we have to counter to make treatments of any person's name properly, let alone Martin Luther King's. Otherwise, we're going to have a bunch of fake punks on name dropping still since founding. Name dropping is one of the things that the breaching method would hide behind. Don't name drop here. Don't prevent emotions and passions to defend the law. Totally honestly, and that requires the use of what is hyper evidential. It requires using evidence. Someone who's pretending you're legitimately using research. They don't will observe all the ways they don't legitimately use research. You fake motherfuckers! I'll fucking heal you. Know that, and you'll be better off. Just follow what. Just think about this. The breaching method caused all those bad things. A predicate acts delivery system method. To counter the predicate acts, I'm not even a lawyer. We have to counter the criminal and we have to describe a criminal enterprise. And they have the war crimes in their narratives about how they, because they have we know about that. You guys don't even know about it. So how could you counter it? We could see you have nuclear weapons, both sides, self-valuing the ground locations involved with the torture and slavery of our founding parents, let alone those who hurt most by it. Those houses the houses in cities were designed to be built, then be converted into two-family houses. The plan knew that since before our founding parents were born, they were building the suburbs to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And they were replacing the reality of that, even semi-replacing the reality of that, to get people other means to make positive value nature progressive in natures, but tactically alter from what the way to make them proper. And while they were entertaining that, we're increasingly and are increasingly incapable of discerning fact, human nature, quality that still hasn't but can right now counter and explain the real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature's predicate acts. Nature's like criminal insidiousness, nature's wrongdoers, wrongdoing itself. So really, they have a certain kind of white power hate person, and they have that certain type of person with CNN that puts his arms around it, and they're in collusion. And all they're doing is keeping all down the ground locations that are supposed to be that we need to follow the rules and mandated law and not make things up. Especially in other words, if a president says fake news was used criminally, that's a premise. Then they say with no evidences that they do that against American citizens on a mass scale. People that would get hurt by police that are corrupt, the people would complain about it, right? If they're going to do something, say that perceive racism, it's worse than racism. They're going to say, "Oh, everyone's corrupt." They're going to say, "Oh, he's saying blames everybody." He was talking about specific acts. So then they bring things before courts, and they use time simultaneously too fast, too slow, to get over on forever nature, our identities. It's what's actually recorded. So CNN had uses of Paul Manafort Drive story and CCSU that is involved with their Facebook pages. Also with the Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court with rape threats with the principal child abusers campus. Still having been active at the time. And with the people on my street, with all sides of my house. I caught the police planting evidences different kinds of ways, federal crimes with evidences, different roles, and then bringing their family members into it as victims, reactions to the federal ones involved, since they were kids. See, most people wouldn't do that and would try to tell them the instances, and then oh, you're telling on someone. Those are the rat bags that brought it up. They were switching sequences too. I caught them trying to trap me because they got caught with untimely deaths on and off Trinity College and on and off CCSU. And they have something to do with Miami, with people involved with that, with the FBI, CIA, and with a Scalora family involved with drugs and medicines, crimes, fabricating audio and video, with fake police forms undercover, planting evidence, identity thefts, fraud, slanders. These are people behind my back pretending to know me and my family. With a Phil Collo, too, one of the ones by this Bob Chase, involved with the courts with these motherfuckers still criminally involved here. So make sure, motherfucker, interstates. And now there's also a DeMoro family that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, is one of the ones involved with sexual and medical abuses of girls that were facilitated also per Mr. Neville with the intelligence community, his family's involvements with this. And they also brought up that middle school for some reason. This Dr. Graham and some judges we need to get the names of involved with the forensics location. Also with that, there's a Joshua Julian on Facebook. I never saw him in real life. My neighbor used to repeat that name with one of the people that I saw him around shortly sometimes. But they used to hang around with friends and stuff. I didn't even think about it. I didn't realize it. They were pretending I was tied to them. Differentially, too. These people know that are not my friends, Paul Zano, and he knows he's not honestly disliking me and my enemy. He's a little fake involved with identity thefts and frauds with others involved near his work on Route 3, and, which is goes by the state judicial and next to the Solstein Middle School. So this Dr. Graham recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed there are more judges and people involved with forensics location with this, also with the confessions of Joshua Julian. There were some corrupt police years ago and overt criminal enterprises and foreign and domestic military involved with the same locations criminally back then too. And that was before that was all proven. And it wasn't all proven, only some of it was proven. Like there's a John LeConte and there's a Dominic Lapriata involved with, like, there was a Dominic Lapriata involved with like some pension thefts and stuff like that, really like that, and frauds and slanders against my father and me. Per Thaddeus Grabowski, his co-defendant, and his co-defendant, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. We're going to use him as evidence to show that and how the stewards of the law can't defend themselves and you at the same time. How, but you guys are preventing mandated law, and you're preventing people from reporting things offensively, because multi-front, they're keeping their roles with having kept the wrong outcome in cases. The police forms associated with the news media have been fabricating audio and video because of the extent of how they've been exploiting, like the communications department at Central Connecticut State University is influenced by the people that that are supposed to check. They have to cover lie progressions tied to how they have hundreds of countries here, obviously. And they're getting away with overt federal crimes, exploiting exception nature, and since founding, where they use the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie. So they also have been using roles with the January 6th nature of the people and of their fact treatments and of their group and of the uses of their groupings. They have the January 6th inclusion and covering it up, forcing equality of fact treatment nature, reliant, dishonest. They're pretending honestly reliant upon higher officials to finish their investigations for them. They're covering the sequence shifts of the former director of the FBI and of other agencies I caught in locations next to the Department of Homeland Security, involved on Fox Connecticut News and the buildings around there. There's a Chris White also involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, some various natures of courts with drugs and medicines, crimes with them, with those police forms on off Fox News. There are shootings of people they're involved with abuses of people on Albany Avenue through time, and with that little corner school around there. I forgot the name of that school. There's a private school associated with a Fred Grisey. And a Fred Grisey recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed as a stranger when he was trying to fake ties to me as a kid. I didn't even know who he was. So I recorded him, showed it to my class with the drugs and everything. He was trying to set me up and other kids. They hid that. They were supposed to show that. That's one of the things I recorded through time they never showed. In other words, and then years later, an Alessandra Spada made confessions tied to that. That's why it was weird. She had called me, asked me for a boxing trophy. She called me out of nowhere asking for a boxing trophy. They were planting evidences. I only knew her from confessions, barely know her, and her sister too. They made exceptions with classroom placements. I never had any problem in the class. So they have a bunch of their boyfriends involved with the judges and as their family members. And they shared her with other girls, like some Robert Schedule, who's also involved with them time. They share the girls and they lie about the other guys that don't even know them. and they try to make exceptions with some of them too. So there's a neighbor. I don't know the neighbors of the Spider family on. I don't know if they're still there on Two Rod Highway, but their neighbors are associated with the Phil Collo. I never had anything to do with Phil Collo. He's also involved with some black and white themed justice people on off the state judicial branch offices and military as the ones that are foreign and domestic, criminally foreign influence involved with identity thefts, fraud, slanders, and trying to tie me to fake ties to a Mike Roberts, who's also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with various natures of federal criminals with my neighbors, federal crimes with my neighbors, with the police, and with their doctors associated with those police too, as the ones that fabricated police reports since they were kids, before they were police, as their roles with teachers I had, with conversations that weren't around me, and off campuses, and online where they're fabricating audio and video. So they had who was really her or someone pretending to be her. A Miss Sigbaldi, who was my English teacher. I only had a nice woman. I barely know her. We just went English class. Anthony Yagman has roles with some doctors and a Leahy family, some Dingleberry family, and roles with some people on my street involved with. I never saw him on my street, but they're involved with various natures of federal crimes with them, including drugs and medicines crimes, including the overt criminal enterprises involved with these cliques and their doctors. But these are ones that are police forms that are pretending to be against us, but they're actively involved with wire crimes together, sexual abuses of little girls. It's even, you could consider it sexual abuses of little boys because of how they have the groupings and they have them all, hiding lipoaggressions. They have the mayors involved with this. One of the mayors reportedly is being coached, having been coached by the police forms and maybe an FBI director, probably Robert Chevery, one of the lawyers of one of the FBI directors criminally involved with the Wethersfield Police Department, where it used to be and where it is now. But there are some men and women on the Wethersfield town offices who are involved with their doctors, like this Dr. Dingleberry, who had fake conversations with me. Who were yelling and trying to make violence, and I had no reaction, and then they pretended that was me yelling, with the one tied to the Jamie Smith near me, and with these, there are some Mike Domain, Adam Domain as ones with the spots next to the Fox Connecticut News right before, leading up to legal cases and before it, leading up to a 2006 district court case, for example. Right before it, Thaddeus Grabowski confessed, demonstrated, recorded roles with that corner, used criminally, timed, right with there's also an Allison, I don't know the name of, pretended other per Jonathan Mayano, involved with federal crimes with her and with her boyfriend and their friends, like with this Domain and with a Rick Cianfaglione involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, and sequence shifts. That's one. They also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed it with the ones on my street with the O'Brien. They have something where they've been using the corners of the street at the principal child abusers campus through time, and then they used it timed. When I was going to drive there, when I was jogging, they would time that something with that corner, and they said it was John Laurie. Tom Perone and Danielle Perone have identity thefts and frauds tied to me, and they said that there's a John Laurie and his family involved with it. I don't know who John Laurie is. And there's a Jennifer Kanapeki, who also John Mayano and Joe Aiello involved with them with identity thefts and frauds against me, sequence shifts, federal crimes on and off campuses, CCSU and Trinity College, with the courts and police forms and overt criminal enterprises and sexual circles involved with them, and on off both sides of those colleges. on both sides of Trinity College, an ILO family, a father and the brother. They have roles with like both sides of Trinity College with identity thefts and frauds, timed when I was a kid and then timed older to pretend to know me, try to pretend exception nature, and with complete strangers. So these are people that all used to hang around with the police forms on my street that had to lie progressions together. They have roles with gun crimes and then pretend to be against such. They're, online pretending passions and emotions against gun crime he said he was involved with years ago. And then he switched it and said Chris Cullen. Chris Cullen is also involved with real estate crimes that judges and prosecutors involved with a Cullen family with. I don't know the Cullen family. He confirmed, confessed, recorded, demonstrated, sought me out as a stranger to demonstrate that. I never had a class with him in my life. He's also involved with the people with the off the state judicial branch offices, identity theft, fraud, slanders, child abuses roles. They had some Jennifer Smith too that was trying to fake natures of ties between me and her and our friends. As the one, you could feel the people trying to make fake natures of ties to you when they have these sick child offenders and these narratives with the cops faking police reports and attaching everyone to fake ties to other people and fake words with themselves. Follow mandated law for the Wethersfield Police and for the Connecticut State Police and for the Whiting's forensics place involved with their patients and criminals. I caught them with courts crimes before they got caught, and with Facebook with this Joshua Julian. There's a Celeste Wells. I don't know her. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They involved her with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, and with the abuses of the little girls they shared and spray. Then they pretend to not like each other. When they told me that, at the they're pretending other things because of their roles, pretending illusions, and then those people are pretending to record things. So they have something to do with the programs with the kids too. There's some people that run the programs with the kids, with the parks that know my name because through other people. I was around them a couple of times, like one of the ones. But he's involved with one of the ones with Wethersfield Park that works with the kids and with the undercover police associated with Dillon family. Dillon family is also on and off my street involved with real estate crimes with Anna Dillon and with a Kelvin Dillon involved with sexual crimes simultaneously, and how they use such to separate subjects because they have the courts involved criminally with those natures of crimes too, and crime methods. So a breaching method against people A through Z, Native Americans A through Z, and then further against Native Americans A through Z, how as the colonies upon them A through Z. Now further as Americans, even though that was for them and only enabled. Our only hope is what was left as the value of Native American dreams. Our only hope to become one of those sick, fake countries still was only enabled by the Native American. Power/might. See, but you won't let our nature have its completion of their fight, our own vaccines. It teaches things. It shows us means. So all this means, all this space becomes available for temporary locations for a circuit before we even need to agree about anything, because then no one's going to stay locked in a place. And a lot of people, even if they don't want to move, a lot of people in cities throughout the country in the rat traps that were only allowed to be pretended worthy of being called other, that only increasingly has to value were sick things having been sustained against other countries. They need to compare because they don't know how to speak for correlation age. So just follow mandated law. Don't let them pick out things out of sequence too to pretend, when you call this name. They do things knowing they have to call them. In other words, they commit crimes against us. Then they pretend we're getting mad at them. That's why they don't respond. because their roles with the crimes, with the courts and the police forms in the military, at all locations, criminally foreign influence. Don't pretend you're going to have those military associated with this Central Connecticut State University and Justin Levinskis pretend his lies and illusions to his wife, who went to my grammar school behind my back. She's going to pretend to know me. No, you have a little sick, fake punk coward. Don't go and pretend your man is anything, and don't pretend you know me with the O'Brien family involved with you and the others at Central Connecticut State University, Lucinda. Get the motherfucker on paper. And get the kids out of this. Why did you bring the kids in the corner of Wells Road and Walker Hill? Joe DeMauro also said he has crimes with stealing, went with my middle school teacher and with his beat roles with Heather Hansen, stealing a sign from over there on a house with that corner. And now with the Mike Pandolf also has federal crimes with them. They brought as strangers, they made all these confessions and then tied to Wells Road. Also that mobile gas station. That's when I went to work there, because these people are also making confessions about their roles with the people on my street. I never saw them with the O'Brien family or with the Mayor Gold's family, but they were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with federal crime methods with them, and with the completion with the uses of their lie progressions, illusions, and identity thefts or frauds roles, and as their roles with the people with these calling other people and themselves Jews all the time in front of me, and then as people in the background tied to them, the ones that did that and do that, as people in the background pretend to be against prejudice. You guys trying to set me up? Let's get the response. Mandated law followed. Let's get people heard. Please, YouTube, do what's right and don't fear these cops. I'll show you what to do with them, with the FBI. I'll show you how to speak for Black rights. I'll show you how the former standing chairperson on racketeering influenced the Corrupt Organization Act, how he got over on Black people consciously and pretended other. I'll show you. Follow mandated law. I'll show you the rest of this campuses, what's going on, what has been going on. Here.